FedeA, thanks for the response. Really good video, lots to respond to. It's an interesting series of seemingly disjointed or unrelated topics that a lot of them were sort of, a lot of them are topics that I raise and try and integrate together as well. And I love it when I sense that maybe somebody else, at least in terms of trying to figure out how I think, manages to at least piece together this seeming bizarre mishmash of ideas into something that may be coherent, at least from a certain point of view, if you start at a certain perspective. Yeah, this business of suffering and referring to the Matrix and the way that the people in the movie The Matrix handled it. Neo chose suffering. He said, "Why do my eyes hurt so much?" To which Morpheus responds, "Because you've never used them before." In other words, he's never actually seen reality. And the act of seeing reality hurts. There is pain involved. We know this from personal experience. We live here. We were born into this. We know that there is suffering. And yet that's the price of being alive, isn't it? And I would go a few steps further in that I don't believe, and this kind of relates to your statements on cannibalism, I don't think that we evolved cannibalism in terms of survivability, I don't think that we evolved our aversion to cannibalism in terms of survivability, at least as individuals. I think that we understand that survival involves doing some pretty disgusting things. Survival involves things like, if we are going to accept carnivorousness, then it involves killing other things that don't want to be killed. It involves dressing the corpse. If you've ever gone hunting, there is the bit of dressing where you got to split it open at the belly and let all the innards sink out onto the ground, and then you wash everything off and you skin the animal and chop it up and all that kind of thing. A lot of people don't do that. They take it into a professional butcher to do it, but a lot of people that I know who hunt actually do that. Hunting is popular in Canada, by the way. Quite popular. Oh, well, you know that, FedeA. You know, people put cowboy boots on, fill the truck up with beer, and head off, hoping to shoot something. So yes, survival involves, or not just survival, but life itself involves some pretty foul things. The act of being born is disgusting, really, when you think about it. I watched my son being born. Not a pretty sight. The blood drips off the wound that was created in my wife's body by the act of my son coming out, and it dripped down onto the floor, and everybody just sort of ignored it. The doctor, more or less, the way a butcher might, shoved his hand inside, as it were, felt around a bit with his rubber glove on, with the expression of a guy who was simply probing for, I don't know, he was sticking his hand into the sand looking around for a coin he'd lost. It wasn't all that big of a deal. And then he pulled it out, took his glove off, and threw it in the garbage. And, you know, you notice these things when it's somebody you care about that it's happening to. And yet you sort of go, yeah, from his perspective, this is just a job. You know, and I didn't mind that. I don't expect anything else from him. But it is sort of an illustration of what life here is like, or I shouldn't say what it's like, but what life involves. So if you want to see the truth, this I think is what is implied when Neo sort of says my eyes are sore from using them. There's no question that he says, I want to go back into the Matrix, forget it. He says, oh, this is the price of seeing things the way they really are. Now that's debatable, because again, he may have gone from one Matrix into another, we don't know. But at least it's not the complete unreality of the previous place, which we know is a Matrix. we know that the matrix that he came out of is a matrix. Or it's simply a function of the matrix that he's still in. There's a degree of sort of certainty that the previous matrix that he came out of was unreal. So you want to stay here and see reality more clearly, or at least get a chance at seeing reality clearly. You're going to have to accept pain. If you want to leave the Garden of Eden where everything is wonderful and see reality the way it really is, you've got to accept old age and death. You've got to accept hunger. You've got to accept disappointment. You've got to accept all this other stuff. Because that's part of the entire package. But ultimately the choice is yours. And again, that was sort of implied later on in the movie when that guy, the bald guy, was offered the choice of going back into the Matrix. Where he said, okay, you don't like reality? Okay, fine, because of all the disappointments and how lousy the food is, and there are women that you can't have, and you know, there's all these things in life that just don't seem to add up to something that you're willing to accept. Okay, then you don't want to accept it. I will put you back in there. Don't worry. There's an element of being tempted by Satan there too, isn't it? You know, just all you have to do is play by my rules and everything is solved. I want your soul, though. In other words, I want your capacity to choose between good and evil, or pleasure and pain, or whatever you want to call it. I want to take that from you. I want to take away your capacity to discern the real from the unreal. You know, it's sort of like the Asatoma mantra, Asatoma Sadgamaya, from the unreal, show me the real. From darkness, lead me to light. From death, lead me to life. And the interesting thing of that is it makes no promises that this is going to be nice. You just want to see things the way they are. It, you know, again, it's a little bit along the lines of the Matrix as well. You understand that what you're seeing now isn't real, and you want to see the real, and you understand that there may be a price to be paid. And in a sense, it's almost like you only have yourself to blame, right? Because you have chosen to see reality for what it is. But to you, it's worth it. Why is it worth it to see reality for what it is? Well, I'll put it this way. Benatar seems to believe in heaven, the heaven of non-existence. You know, the Christian version of theism says once you die, you go to a blissful place. Most of the time, if you're a halfway decent individual. Benatar seems to say the same thing. Everything in this life is really a waste of time. The surest way to heaven is to only concentrate on that. Only concentrate on never leaving the Garden of Eden. But some of us walked out willingly, and we even have the option of going back into it whenever we want. What would that be? What would Benatar's version of going back into heaven, into the Matrix, or into the Garden of Eden? What would his version of that be? I would say it would be something along the lines of a suicide bag. You know, this, I think it was Greatex did a video on it a long time ago, where there's a pretty reliable way to painlessly off yourself. And that would seem to me to be Benatar's version of the surest way to heaven. And again, I don't want to get into this idea of suicide or whatever and arguing whether or not people should commit suicide. All I'm saying is there is a way to go to Benatar's heaven whenever one so chooses. I'm not saying that it's going to be easy, but if you really want it, if you want to go to heaven, then there you go. You go into non-existence. I would assume that would be the most logical thing to do, is to, if you can't stand it here, then find a way out of here. Which is, again, what the guy in the Matrix with the goatee said. He said, all right, I'll go back into the Matrix. I will forget about who I am. I will, as it were, commit suicide. I will end this particular personality and I will become something else. Something that isn't confined by the boundaries of reality. Reality as it is. Reality as I must accept it. Outside of the Matrix, where, I was jerked out of the Matrix and it's not fair that this has happened. Somebody is responsible for this. Put me back in. I don't want to be here. At least he sort of said, this is what I want, and he confronted it and he went through with it, or he tried to. Whereas instead of actually acting on one's convictions, a lot of people seem to just, instead of changing the light bulb, they curse the dark and curse everybody else's responsibility for being in the dark, when actually in the normal course of time, we're all going back to where we came from anyway. Pretty soon, this mortal coil will die, and I'll be back where I started. And it's interesting, again, because you see the dichotomy between, I guess you'd just call it, two personality types, right? Neo's character, Keanu Reeves, he accepts the pain of existence. He accepts the disappointments and the possibilities of disappointments. Why? Well, first of all, when you fall in love in reality, which he presumably did in the movie, then you're experiencing something real. Nietzsche said, we want to live not as an end in itself. We want to live because we want to love. I think that Amor Fati is a much overlooked part of what he has to say, and I think that that's one of the central core ideas to understand everything about him. We don't want to live as an end in itself. We want to live because of the things that are only available to us as long as we exist. That was the choice that Neo made, right? I accept wearing these ragged clothes, living in a stinky environment, probably smelling of human sweat and flatulence and stale body odor or whatever, in this capsule all the time that's a paltry place compared to the Matrix. But it does seem to be more real than what I left behind. And so I will accept the limitations of this, because at least what I feel on this side of the portal, or this side of the plug in the back of the head, at least what I feel here does or has convinced me, at least it's a little bit more real than over there. Existence seems to be real. I choose to go and look for what I want. I'm a disciple of truth, as Nietzsche said, and he said, if you're a disciple of truth, then inquire. If you want peace and a normal life, then believe. The guy who wanted to go back into the Matrix opted to believe. He wanted to be fed a bunch of illusions that he would believe. And he wanted to have his disbelief artificially suspended. In other words, he saw reality itself as something to be presented to him in a whole that he would accept or reject. He saw the reality of the Matrix in its entirety, and he rejected it. And he said, now I want to actually have a reality presented to me. And some people seem to see reality this way. They seem to think that meaning has to be inherent in reality and to be presented to me. It has to be there for me to discover, or I will reject all meaning. He said, I want to just have a good reality presented to me. As a critic of these two, I'm just sort of saying, I want to have the choice between these two, and I want to consciously say, this one is better. I am the one who decides which one is better. I am a critic of reality itself. I have ideas as to what reality should be. Now, that's all very well, but again, what reality should be and what reality is are not the same thing. The implication in the Matrix, if you ask me, is if you want to have a perfect life, we'll give it to you, but it won't be real. which is kind of another way of saying if you want things to be nice, then believe in something. Believe in Benatar's blissful non-existence, and you will be there eventually. Believe in heaven. You see where Benatar sort of starts to sound like Judeo-Christian stuff. He starts to say that suffering is all that matters. Therefore, non-existence is some sort of heaven. Now, there is a corollary to that, which he doesn't explore, and I'm rather... I question his integrity for it, because I think it's fairly obvious. Why would he be opposed to religion? Why would he be such a hardcore atheist? Well, because it's not real. Well, okay, but it will end your suffering. Didn't you just get done telling me that suffering is all that matters? And again, to quote from The Matrix, Morpheus says, "What is real, Neo?" How do we know what's real? How do we know what reality is? Benatar seems to have taken the idea that the metaphysics of our sense perceptions is utterly real. In other words, all of this that I see around me is some sort of reality, and there is no other. That we know, per science, is inaccurate. We know that the information of our senses is not as accurate as we might think it is, because none of this stuff is around me. That painting you see there, that's not there. That's just a jumble of matter and energy and empty space, mostly empty space. The lamp that you see with those silly ribbons hanging from it is just matter, energy, and empty space. The stuffed shirt that you see babbling into the webcam here is nothing more than matter, energy, and empty space. My voice that you hear is nothing but the disturbance of matter and energy and empty space, vibrations which create sound. You're not even hearing me speak to you right now. What you're hearing is an image that was captured on a camera and uploaded to The Matrix and that you're now seeing. What you're seeing isn't real. But Benatar seems to take it all at faith that this is real. In other words, he doesn't question the metaphysics of it all. Reality is exactly what it appears to be to us. Now, I mentioned in another video a while back the idea of the Hindu idea of bhakti, which is devotional adoration of one's chosen deity, or the deity of one's caste, the one that you're born to. You basically bend all of your energies towards adoring and being devoted to this deity. When you get right down to it, and the more intellectual proponents of this idea, like Ramanuja, who was a saint from southern India a couple of millennia ago or whatever, or a millennia ago, I think, he basically says, who cares about the metaphysics of all of this? Who cares whether or not Krishna or Ganesh or Lord Dattatreya actually exist? That's not the point. The point is to bring forth something in yourself. So you have to play a few tricks with reality to do it, let's be honest. I've never once seen this multi-armed and multi-headed god wandering around the streets of my city that I'm worshipping. In fact, I have no evidence whatsoever that said God exists. But that's not the point. I want something out of the act of adoring this God. What do I want? I want bliss. I want to make sense of my suffering. I want my suffering to be manageable. And they all promise this, and if you ask me, religion bloody delivers on it. If Benatar really does think that suffering is all that matters, he's making a case for religion. And this is where I sort of part company with the people who tend to think that religion or faith or whatever is, by its very nature, an anathema. It's haram. It's something you do not do. A taboo. Because what if you do take these people at their word? What if you do take, even the Buddha seemed to have said this, and Mahavira of the Jains certainly said it. Suffering is reality. What if you take these people at their word, that suffering is all that counts? All right. Why is religion a problem then? Religion will relieve my suffering. You would have to be insane not to be a religious person, because if pain is all that matters, religion is the cure for that. You can say it's delusion. All right, it is delusion. But didn't you just get done telling me that delusion really is less of a consideration than the act of suffering itself? Didn't the guy in the Matrix who opted to go back in, didn't he actually do essentially what the logic behind Benatar's view of pain militate towards? Did it actually make sense in the context of what these essentially life-denying philosophies say, that suffering is all that matters, that this world is indeed a poor and paltry place, and the best thing we can do is to get out of it? That's what all these religions teach. And belief will help you with all that pain. It will help you with all the disappointments in life. It'll get you through everything. But people say it's not real. Okay, what is real? Show me some reality. Good luck, by the way. Because I'm going to question the living hell out of that. And all that people are going to say is, shut up or we'll burn you at the stake in one form or another. So it does seem to me that Nietzsche was right when he said that, say, Christianity or the Judeo-Christian tradition is kind of a slave morality, or a slave point of view. I shouldn't just say a slave morality, but a slave point of view. Because you tend to see reality as crumbs that are dropped down to you. That reality is something that is being presented to you, and you pass judgment on that which is being presented to you. There is something bigger than you that is offering you something, and you accept or reject it. You do not have in any way the power to seek that which you want of your own. You don't have any power to go after things. You don't have any power to make your own decisions. You don't have any power to alter anything. Therefore, life, reality, existence, everything is just are just crumbs from a bigger table. Whereas the master point of view, and again, I think this gets misconstrued, the master is simply the master of himself, the master of his own destiny, the master of his or her, own existence, the master of his or her own life, inasmuch as it's possible to be the master of anything. This person has decided they are going to live. And I'm not contented with the crumbs that life drops to me. I want to go get my own bloody crumbs, even if what I get is less than what my master will give me. I think most of us who are actually inquirers have been offered at many points in their life, buy into everything and I will sort everything out for you in one form or another. And we've consistently rejected that, simply because we want to get it ourselves. I would rather screw up my own life by trying to sort of hew my own furrow or plow my own furrow, mixed metaphors there, than have a nice, pleasant life based upon some master giving stuff to me. I accept the pain in my eyes as the cost of seeing. I'm not saying that everybody has to do this. In fact, I think most people do see life that way. Show me the rules, show me the realities that I have to live with, and that's enough. Just give me something that I have to live with. Put me in the Matrix. Let me explain the rules of the Matrix to me, and I will be fine. Some of us are not happy with that. And again, it's the slave-master thing, right? But again, I don't think that it means that the master is in charge of the slave. It's just you have a certain perspective on reality itself. I want to get the most that I can out of this existence, and I'm not willing to just wait on it to deliver to me. I want to go get it. Because that's what I believe, that's where I believe meaning lies. Meaning will never come to you. You have to go get it. Whereas the slave says, give me some meaning. And if you can't give me some meaning, then there isn't any. Because that's where meaning is. Meaning is something external to me that is given to me. No, thank you. I'm not a slave, or at least I don't want to be one. This video turned into a bit of a ramble, a lot longer than I intended it to be, but you raised so many interesting points that I kind of couldn't help myself here. Maybe I'll have to make maybe I'll have to make a series of videos in response to the one video you sent, because I'd like to sort of discuss political correctness and perhaps even cannibalism as well.